So 25 years by public. It is going to be back a sort of whistle-stop tour because obviously there's so much that's happened in the 25 years of Pride Cymru. So there is really sort of some of the highlights. So I'm going to start in the late 19th century, oddly enough. This place, the Dutch Cafe, which is where the Queen's Arcade is now. Yes. And this was operating from the late 19th century, early 20th century. And it was nicknamed the Double Dutch because a lot of same-sex couples used to go there. And you see as well, this is Pride Cymru's map, and copies are available on the table. So you can see there's a lot of places, sort of like lost LGBTQ plus Cardiff. How many people remember the King's Cross?
Yes.
Yes, everybody had. So the King's Cross was opposite the light, opposite it. And it closed in 2010. Fortunately, the museum in Cardiff managed to save some stuff like the lamp and a few of the, things waving, other pieces from the King's Cross. This is the Older Lesbian Network, and all these newsletters are held at Glamorgan Archives, and they would have a stall at Cardiff Mardi Gras. And so you can see that there is a vibrant community already in existence before Cardiff Mardi Gras. And the same is true around the rest of Wales. These are the Welsh LGBTQ+ timeline collections. And every county in Wales now has its own queer timeline. And Wales is the only country in the world to have this. I'm on the committee of the LGBTQ+ History Month around the world, and all the other worlds, they're so jealous of what's happening in Wales, because not only is the Welsh government put a lot of money into things, but you know, we're really looking at local history and trying to bring out a lot more and avoid mainstream narratives. So Pride, first UK Pride, as most of you probably know, was in 1972. This is 2 years after the one in America following the Stonewall riots, which I'm sure you all know. Yes, not. And the first Wales Pride is in 1985. And here's some of the headlines that accompanied that. There was a lot of, obviously, backlash from religious, march of the sinful gays. And people were, this time were just referred to as the gays. And you see that 100 expected on the march. That's the famous photograph that I'm sure everybody's familiar with. And apparently it was an overwhelming success. 100 people turned up. And you think of that now and today, 100 people turned up. And a lot of the banners and everything were all handmade. So if anybody's got any more photos, we are really needing to collect more photos and things from earlier times. So Cardiff Mardi Gras was launched in 1999 in Butetown. There's the brochure for the programme. You can see at the top, there's Pride in London. Brighton Pride starts in 1973. And then you've got Birmingham Pride in 70. Then you've only got two major things in the UK during the 80s. But during the 90s, you then start to see more events starting. And if you look, apart from the film festival in the UK and Glasgow, which was an arts festival, really Cardiff is the only organisation that calls itself Mardi Gras, not Pride. It doesn't use the Pride word, whereas most of the other ones do. And a lot of this to do with Section 28. You all know Section 28. It's not. That iniquitous little law that came in 1988. And the governments throughout history, way back into the far reaches of time, would always use terminology to try and trap people. So they would say gross indecency. So they would arrest men for gross indecency. And when people would say, well, what does gross indecency actually mean? They would say, well, it's anything we want it to mean. And the same with Section 28. It says that any organisation which receives public funding cannot promote homosexuality or promote the idea of pretended families. And this came back to bite them because there wasn't a single prosecution under Section 28. Why? Because everybody knew that the lawyers are the only ones who would benefit from it, because they would get rich, tying up the courts for years on end, asking, what does promote mean? Could you define promote? What does a pretended family mean? So, so as I said, nothing happened in terms of prosecution during the lifetime of Section 28. I worked for the Museum of London, and we put on a queer exhibition. They did a whole thing about reassessing what we collect, because most libraries, museums, and archives in the UK were not collecting LGBTQ+ stuff. And so the Museum of London was one of the first to say, right, we want to look at our ethnic diversity, our disability, and our diverse histories. And so we put on this exhibition in 2000, and we basically begged the local council to come and prosecute us because we wanted to be a test case. And they wouldn't. That's really annoying, because we wanted to vote. So it's repealed in 2003. But despite there being no prosecutions, and a lot of people say, oh, Section 28 didn't make much difference in my life, it did make a big difference to libraries, museums, and archives, and our history, because people were not collecting our history. And you see this a lot in sort of museum, library, archive collections. And I talk to people throughout all the time that I'm wandering at, and people say, oh yeah, we used to have activist groups, and we had photos, and we had, archives, and we had everything. No, we threw them away because we just kept carrying them around from house to house. So eventually we just threw them away. So we've lost a lot of our history because of Section 28. So Pride of Mardi Gras happens in 1999. This is a piece from BBC Wales. And now we've got thousands celebrate gay Mardi Gras. But look at the language. It's sort of talks about, and it says it hopes it will become an annual festival. That was really only the big sort of publicity at the time. Nobody else really commented about it. These are some of the programs, brochures from the early Mardi Gras, and have a look at the name. So you've got Cardiff Lesbian and Gay Mardi Gras, which then changed to Cardiff Wales Lesbian Gay Mardi Gras. And then by 2011, you've got Cardiff Wales LGBT Mardi Gras. So there's a change in names as they go along. Now, what I was saying about the difficulty in collecting, you'll notice that from 2000 to 2003, I cannot find a brochure for 2001 and 2002. So if anybody's got one, could we have it, please? So this is the problem. We do have holes in our history, and whatever our history is in Wales, there are these holes. Because a lot of people are collecting, and there wasn't enough emphasis, people like you, to say keep your collections. So the press doesn't really start commenting about Mardi Gras until 2002. Up until then, it's very little in the mainstream press, very sort of muted. But from 2002, things do tend to pick up. But look again at the language. This is the point I was going to make. Look at the language. A carnival of fun and fancy dress. And it's very much promoting this idea that it's a carnival of fun in fancy dress. So the politicization of pride, the media is deliberately moving away from that and playing on the Mardi Gras theme, not the pride theme. And initially, Cardiff Mardi Gras was run by Safer Wales. And in 2010, they handed it over to volunteers and it becomes a registered charity. And it's important to remember from this time onwards that most of Pride Cymru is run by volunteers. There have been very few paid staff throughout the history of Cardiff Mardi Gras and Pride Cymru. And there's a few pictures from 2010. 2013, it moved to the Millennium Centre. One of the difficulties with any prides of these kind of events is the horrendous cost in putting them on. So there are always ways of trying to find to try and sort of cut down costs. And one of the ideas was that by going to the Millennium Centre, if you get rained off, because if you get rained off, you lose a lot of money, you could put the roof over. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. It wasn't a particularly popular move, and so it's never been back. But the wonderful Beverly Knight did appear. And this is really the first time as well, 2013, that you start to see religious bodies putting out messages of support. So you've got the Archbishop of Wales, who sends out a message of support. So this is quite a milestone, because prior to this, the religions were quite muted in what they said about any Pride events in the UK. 2012 is the first Mardi Gras parade. And again, look at the language. We've gone back to hundreds of people. So hundreds of people. Before it was 100, then it was 1,000, now we've gone back to 100. And you can see some of the highlights on the Cardiff Pride Cymru YouTube channel. So if you go on there, you can watch the 2012 highlights and a couple of other stuff. And when you look at the difference between 2012 with the hundreds of people to sort of modern day where thousands of people now go on the march. In 2015, Pride Cymru, in association with Stonewall Cymru, started the Pink List. It was initially the 40 most influential LGBTQ plus people. Now it's 40 plus sort of like people to watch and others. So next year is the 10-year anniversary. So I've been starting doing a list to see who's the most popular on the Pink List. I can tell you now, I think it's Russell T who tops the poll. So I do have a poll of who appears most on the Pink List. So look at that next year, 10 years of the Pink List. And then 2017, Icons and Allies, which was funded by the National Lottery. And this Pride Cymru is always, and Cardiff Mardi Gras has always tried to do a lot of history events as well. So sort of Cardiff Mardi Gras and Pride Cymru have never forgotten the historical roots. And this was one of the events that remembered that, and goes back some of the most influential people and allies in Wales. And unfortunately, it tends to be male dominated. We do have a problem with trying to uncover women's history, speaking, is vastly underrated. The National Library of Wales does a dictionary of Welsh biography, and in this dictionary, all the notable people of Wales, as a percentage, guess how many are women?
10.
10. 1. 1.
3.
3. 5. 5% of the dictionary of Welsh biography is about women. And this is serious because it has a knock-on effect, because it means diverse women, ethnic diversity women, disability women, LGBT lesbian women, trans women are not being included as well. Because when you're 5%, think about that 5%, that's the low-hanging fruit. That's the Shirley Bassies of the world. So when we start looking at people like Llangollen, whose head is chopped off in the slide, and the ladies of Llangollen, the ladies of Llangollen, who have been talked about for forever, they've never been in the dictionary of biography. So I'm working with them to increase the number of biographies about women. And only this month, last month, did the biographies of the ladies of Llangollen go up. So that shows you how far behind we are. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done on bringing women, trans people, and diverse sexualities to the fore. The Dictionary of Welsh biography doesn't list LGBTQ+. And you'll often find that they use a language where it's difficult to locate them. So it's important that organisations like Pride Cymru do these sort of events in order to keep reminding us of our history. 2019, did you know there is no history of disability in Wales at all? Not one. So it's important, again, that organisations like Pride Cymru start introducing these kind of diversities into its event. So 2019, there was the Deaf Pride. Oh, sorry, let's get out of focus. The Deaf Pride. And Pride Cymru becomes the first Pride event in the UK to get a silver award by Attitude is Everything. And they still hold the gold award. And I know, in talking to Catherine, yes, that there's a lot more work being done as well on visual impairment. So, you know, if we're not doing it, who is? We can't sit around waiting for other people to do these things. We have to start doing them ourselves. This is the Pride Cymru YouTube channel. And one of the really important things about this channel on YouTube is obviously a lot of people go to Pride, but we don't always know who's going to Pride. So the YouTube channel serves as a sort of backup where we can talk about all sorts of different things. It starts off in 2014. I don't know if there's any earlier ones. I mean, Rob's got some images from 2000, some video from 2002. But where do we find our history? We have to appeal to you folks to say, go through your collections, go through your photos, go through your videos, go through your friends, and try and let us have as much as you can. So the earliest on the YouTube channel is 2014. And then there's all sorts of, which led perfectly into COVID, because therefore it was easy enough to step forward into doing the event online. So as you can see, did anybody attend the online COVID?
What a cottage. That was my house.
And he's gone wrong quiet. So yes, so during COVID, during lockdown, Pride Cymru goes online. This was just one of them. There was a whole series of events. And of course, you see here, you've got British Sign Language. And just to reiterate the point, that channel allows Pride Cymru to talk about issues that may not be able to fit neatly into Pride Cymru, the event. So when you think of Pride Cymru, it's not just about the party in the park. It's about the long 365 work that everybody does to try and sort of cover as much as possible. And you'll see in these videos, you've got health, you've got ethnic diversity, you've got disability, religion, all sorts of things. So if you haven't seen them, do have a look at some of the things online. And other sort of projects related to Pride Cymru is Fast Track, which is under Pride Cymru's umbrella and operates independently, which is looking towards ending HIV in Wales. I'm sure most of you know that poster. And the local prides. Since 2018, there have been more local prides in Wales than anywhere else in the world. I know this because I'm on the international committee. And a lot of countries around the world, particularly those countries which have difficulty with their laws, are so jealous of this. Because every sort of month, every 2 months when we have a meeting, you're asked, oh, what have you been doing? What do you want to say? And so I tell about what's happening in Wales. And to be honest, they are gobsmacked, particularly those countries. And there's a lot of countries on the committee that come from areas where it's still illegal to be gay or trans or any other diverse sexuality. And so when they see things like this, they can only wait. And so since 2000, there's been more local prides in Wales than anywhere else. And this is all part of what I've been doing as well with the Welsh Government. The Welsh Government is the only government in the world to have funded 2 years of training, helping libraries, museums and archives fill in all those missing gaps. And we're doing all sorts of things. Not only are we just actually collecting things, but creative interpretation, like writing workshops, which we did with some fragments. So doing all sorts of things. And the emphasis is on local. The Welsh Government specifically wanted us to concentrate on local and get away from the Oscar Wilde mainstream narrative. And because we want to talk about you folks. you know, what has life been like for you folks in Wales during this period? So there's a lot of local prides. Some of them do go on the county names, like Caerphilly and Wrexham. Some of them go by town names, where they happen. First off, Abergavenny Pride is basically Monmouthshire Pride, but because it's in Abergavenny, it's called Abergavenny Pride. I absolutely love the local prides. They're great fun. The atmosphere is absolutely running. And you learn a lot. You learn a lot more going to these prides than possibly going to much larger events, which is always Pride Cymru. But Pride Cymru tends to have a stall. The difficulty with these prides is most of them put it in June, and there's only 4 weekends in June. Spend some days going to one in the morning, racing to another one for lunchtime, and then racing to another one. And Mark and I keep swapping them. Mark, you go to this one, I'll go to that one. And we try and collect merchandise and all sorts of things at Prides. So Pride Cymru always tries to have a stall, not simply to promote Pride Cymru and say, come to party with us, but look at our YouTube channel, look what we can offer, look what we're doing to support you across the board, you know, in all sort of health things or, you know, relationship advice through those YouTube channels and through working with other organisations. And going back to the point that even those little local prides, even the small ones where there's only a couple of hundred people go, they are horrendously expensive to go on. They are so expensive. You have to pay for the location, and then you have to pay for all sorts of things like the policing and, you know, the council charges and everything else. So there's a lot of money involved in putting on these organisations, and most of it is done by volunteers. You know, people who come home after, you know, working all day and then start in the evening to try and get these events off the ground. And the costs just spiral. You know, these are some of the T-shirts. The reason they're creased is we didn't have time to iron them for the picture, sorry. But you get all these different T-shirts. They've got to be conserved. And as Mark will tell you, conserving textiles in museums is a nightmare. Because the first thing they do is the cost of preserving. And then you have things like this, these lanyards that change every year. And you have the sort of the AAA is the status you are and which areas you can go and all that. And then this one, you've got the channel that you can connect people. And then you've got the wristbands. So there's so much to think about. I mean, this is only the tip of the iceberg. You've got so much to think about in terms of your costs and what you're actually trying to achieve. So what does Pride mean? It means a lot to different people. This bravely went through lots of old Facebook and Twitter, I used to call it X. So these are just some of the columns. Obviously, we've got a lot more. And it'd be nice to collect them and sort of keep them. And Pride is going home. Next year, Pride is going back where it was started in Butte Park. So that is just a really rapid whistle-stop tour through some of the highlights of Pride Cymru. I could stand here for 2 hours and tell you loads of different things, but unfortunately we don't have the time. So thanks to Kath and Mark for helping with some with the slides. So basically, just a few highlights.